First Contact's Price. The Myriad Coalition's Grand Chamber fell silent as first speaker Varana's crystalline form shimmered with anxiety. The holographic displays surrounding the 1,000-member council showed the same devastating footage. A single human vessel, designated Twilight Wanderer, had just decimated their most advanced reconnaissance fleet. 17 ships, Varana's harmonics wavered. 17 of our most advanced vessels, reduced to stellar dust by a craft barely a quarter their size. The chamber's bioluminescent walls pulsed with the collective disquiet of the gathered representatives. Admiral Kexhal, his scaled carapace bearing the marks of countless victories, stepped forward. First speaker, with respect, we may have miscalculated in our approach to the humans. His secondary breathing vents flared, a sign of extreme distress among his species. Our standard protocols for integrating new spacefaring races into the coalition appear to have triggered something unprecedented. The gathering's attention shifted to the central projection, where the battle replay showed the human vessel executing maneuvers that defied known physics. The ship seemed to phase between multiple positions simultaneously, its weapons striking from impossible angles, its defenses anticipating attacks before they were launched. The humans call it the Ghost Dance Protocol. Intelligence Director Mira Shen added, her tentacles weaving complex patterns of concern. Our initial analysis suggested their technology was centuries behind ours. We assumed, like all emerging species, they would accept our offer of protection and guidance or face immediate subjugation. She paused, her bioluminescent spots flickering with embarrassment. We were wrong. The chamber erupted in murmurs as the next recording began playing. It showed the Coalition's diplomatic envoy arriving at the human solar system 3 standard months ago. Following centuries of successful first contact procedures, they had deployed their most impressive battle fleet, 500 warships arranged in the traditional sphere of civilization formation. The humans had responded by sending a single representative to the designated neutral meeting point. 1 ship, 1 captain, no escorts. The Coalition interpreters had translated the human response to their ultimatum with increasing confusion. We respectfully decline your offer of protection. We suggest you reconsider your position. When the Coalition launched their standard demonstration of force, the ritual destruction of a small uninhabited moon, the humans hadn't fled. They hadn't surrendered. They had simply watched. And then that same lone ship had systematically hunted down every Coalition reconnaissance vessel sent to study their defenses. What we failed to understand, Admiral Kexhal continued, his voice heavy with newfound respect, is that humans evolved on a death world. Not just any death world, but one that forced them to develop technologies we had never conceived of. Their entire approach to space combat is alien to us. The chamber's displays shifted to show analyses of the human vessel's capabilities. Its hull seemed to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. Its weapons didn't just break the laws of physics, they rewrote them locally. And most disturbing of all, it appeared to be just a mid-sized exploration vessel, not even a dedicated warship. We have intercepted transmissions suggesting this ship was chosen deliberately, Mira Shen added. Not as their most powerful vessel, but as a message. They sent an explorer to face our warships. The implications. First speaker Varana's crystalline form darkened with dread. They're not afraid of us. They never were. Our show of force wasn't met with fear, it was met with pity. The chamber fell silent again as the final recording played. It showed the human captain's last transmission to the Coalition fleet. The being's soft, externally vulnerable form seemed almost laughably fragile compared to the varied evolutionary advantages of the Coalition species. Yet there was something in those eyes that made even the most hardened warriors among them feel a primal unease. We understand you're following your protocols, the human had said, speaking in perfect Coalition standard. We're following ours. You brought an armada to intimidate us. We sent 1 ship to educate you. Consider this your first and only lesson. Humanity doesn't respond well to threats. We're happy to engage in peaceful dialogue, But if you choose conflict, the human smiled, an expression that their xenobiologists were still debating the meaning of. Well, this was just a demonstration from our exploratory division. You really don't want to see our actual military response. Admiral Kixhall's battle scars pulsed with ancestral warning patterns. First speaker, I recommend we immediately revise our first contact protocols. The humans have demonstrated that our entire understanding of technological progression and military doctrine may be fundamentally flawed. Agreed. Varana's crystal lattice structure chimed with resolution. We need to understand them better, not as potential subjects or adversaries, but as equals, perhaps even as superiors in some aspects. She turned to address the full chamber. For the first time in the Coalition's history, we will approach a species with humility, because they have taught us something invaluable. True strength isn't about how many ships you have. It's about how far you're willing to go to avoid using them. As the chamber began drafting a new diplomatic approach, the human vessel maintained its vigilant watch at the edge of their space. A single ship, redefining the balance of power in the galaxy, not through overwhelming force, but through the simple demonstration that humanity had evolved beyond the need for it. The Coalition had brought an armada to subjugate a new race. Humanity had sent one ship to teach them the price of their arrogance, and in doing so, they had changed the course of galactic history forever. The Ghost Protocol. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen stood at the bridge of the Twilight Wanderer, watching the quantum display as it tracked the movements of the Coalition fleet. 3 weeks had passed since their initial confrontation, and still, the alien armada hung at the edges of the Sol system, seemingly uncertain how to proceed. They're scanning us again, reported Dr. Marcus Wong, the ship's quantum physicist and architect of the Ghost Protocol. His fingers danced across the holographic interface, adjusting parameters that even most humans couldn't comprehend. Same result as always. Their sensors are detecting anywhere between 1 and 10,000 ships, depending on which quantum state they're observing. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The Ghost Protocol had been humanity's greatest breakthrough in defensive technology. The ability to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously, making a single ship appear as many, or none at all. It was humanity's answer to the age-old question: how do you defend against a numerically superior force? The answer, it turned out, was to make them question the very nature of reality. New transmission from Coalition Command, announced Communications Officer Raj Patel. There, requesting clarification about our fleet numbers. Again. Standard response, Sarah ordered, suppressing a chuckle. Neither confirm nor deny. The Coalition's confusion was understandable. Their entire military doctrine was based on overwhelming force, massive fleets, superior numbers, advanced weaponry. They had never encountered a species that approached warfare from a completely different paradigm. The quantum display flickered, showing new movement from the Coalition fleet. A single vessel had broken formation, approaching the designated neutral zone. It was smaller than their typical warships, bearing markings that their xenologists had identified as diplomatic insignia. They're learning, Dr. Wong observed, matching our apparent force projection. One ship for one ship. Sarah nodded. They're adapting faster than we expected. Intelligence suggested it would take them months to break from their traditional protocols. The bridge crew watched as the Coalition diplomatic vessel continued its approach. The ship's design was organic, almost crystalline, reflecting the varied biology of the species that made up their alliance. It was beautiful, in its way, a testament to the incredible diversity of life in the galaxy. Incoming transmission, Raj reported. Text only, translated to standard English. The message appeared on the main display. We acknowledge our error in approach. Request dialogue without pretense of force. Willing to discuss terms as equals. Sarah exchanged glances with her senior staff. This was the moment they had been working toward. The reason why the Twilight Wanderer had been chosen for this mission. They weren't just an exploration vessel. They were humanity's proof of concept for a new kind of interstellar diplomacy. Dr. Wong, Sarah called, Disengage the Ghost Protocol. Let them see us as we are. The quantum physicist's hands moved across his console, and the ship's quantum state collapsed into a single reality. For the first time, the Coalition would see the Twilight Wanderer as it truly was. One ship, no more, no less. Message from the Coalition vessel, Raj announced, his voice carrying a note of surprise. They're apologizing. Their xenopsychologists have apparently just completed an analysis of human historical records. They say they understand now. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Understand what? Why we responded the way we did. They'd been studying Earth's history, our evolution, our conflicts. They say, Raj paused, reading the translation carefully. They say we're the first species they've encountered who developed space travel not to escape our world's dangers, but because we had already mastered them. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The Coalition's approach to first contact, overwhelming shows of force, demands for submission, had worked on species that saw space as a refuge from their homeworld's challenges. But humans had conquered their death world. They had turned its dangers into strengths, its challenges into opportunities. They're requesting a face-to-face meeting, Raj continued. Their first speaker wants to understand how a species that mastered quantum mechanics chose to use it for deception rather than destruction. Sarah smiled. Finally, they were asking the right questions. Send our acceptance, she ordered, and prepare a detailed brief on the Ghost Protocol's development. It's time they understood why we chose to meet their armada with a single ship. As the Coalition vessel drew closer, Sarah reflected on the true purpose of their mission. The Ghost Protocol wasn't just a defensive technology. It was a demonstration of humanity's fundamental approach to survival. Where other species sought safety in numbers, humans had learned to adapt, to deceive, to turn their adversaries' strengths against them. The Coalition had brought an armada because they understood force. Humanity had sent one ship because they understood something far more powerful, the art of making your enemies question everything they thought they knew. Final preparations complete, Dr. Wong reported. Ghost Protocol is fully disengaged. We're ready to show them exactly who and what we are. Sarah nodded, her eyes fixed on the approaching Coalition ship. Send one final message before they dock. Tell them, the greatest power isn't in having the largest fleet. It's in making your adversaries never quite sure what they're truly facing. The Coalition vessel's response was immediate. We are beginning to understand. Perhaps that is why you humans are the most terrifying species we have ever encountered. Sarah couldn't help but smile at that. They had no idea just how right they were, or how much more they had yet to learn about humanity's unique approach to galactic diplomacy. Echoes of Terra. Chief Analyst Zix 427 of the Coalition Intelligence Division stared at the holographic display with all four of his optical organs, trying to make sense of the data before him. The room around him was filled with the most advanced analytical minds from 17 different species, all equally puzzled by the challenge of understanding humanity's defense systems. Play it again, he commanded, his voice resonating through his crystalline speech chambers. The display flickered, showing the now famous encounter between the Twilight Wanderer and the Coalition's reconnaissance fleet. Focus on Time Index 47b, called out Analyst Miravex, her tentacles writhing with excitement. Watch how their quantum field interacts with our targeting systems. The assembled analysts observed as the human vessel seemed to split into multiple probability states, each version executing different maneuvers simultaneously. Coalition targeting computers, designed to predict enemy movements based on millions of recorded space battles, simply failed to compute. It's not just technology, observed theoretical warfare specialist Kron9, his exoskeleton clicking thoughtfully. Look at their battle doctrine. Every species we've encountered approaches space combat with overwhelming force. More ships, more weapons, more soldiers. But humans, he gestured at the display with one of his primary manipulators. They turned their technological disadvantage into an advantage. ZX-427 moved closer to the central hologram, which now displayed a detailed analysis of Earth's history. Their entire evolution is unprecedented. Most spacefaring species evolved on worlds that encouraged cooperation, leading to unified planetary governments before reaching the stars. But humans evolved fighting everything, interrupted historical analyst Vertex, her phosphorescent scales pulsing with intense interest. Their planet themselves, their own nature. They never achieved unity through peace. They achieved it through surviving conflict. The display shifted to show images of Earth, a death world by any coalition classification, extreme temperature variations, aggressive biodiversity, constant geological instability, and a species that not only survived it all but thrived. Their quantum technology isn't just a weapon, Miravex added, bringing up new data streams. It's a reflection of their entire approach to existence. They don't try to overpower threats. They adapt to them, turn them around, make their enemies question their own capabilities. ZX-427 watched as the display showed the moment the Twilight Wanderer first revealed its true nature to the Coalition diplomatic vessel. They could have built massive fleets. Their industrial capacity certainly allows for it. But instead, they developed the Ghost Protocol, a system that makes a single ship appear as many, or none, or something in between. It's their history, Vertex said, pulling up ancient Earth military records. Look at their tactical evolution. Guerrilla warfare, asymmetric conflicts, psychological operations. Humans learned early that the strongest force isn't always the winning force. The room fell silent as new data streamed in from the diplomatic meeting currently taking place between coalition leaders and the human delegation. The Twilight Wanderer's quantum field technology had been explained in detail, yet somehow that made it even more impressive. They're not just showing us their capabilities, Kron9 observed, his voice carrying a note of revelation. They're showing us their philosophy. The Ghost Protocol isn't just about making one ship appear as many. It's about making your opponent question everything they think they know about warfare. ZX-427 initiated a new simulation, incorporating their latest understanding of human tactical doctrine. Look at how they approach conflict resolution. The coalition shows force to prevent war. Humans demonstrate capability to encourage peace. It's fundamentally different. The assembled analysts watched as the simulation played out hundreds of potential scenarios. In each one, the human approach proved surprisingly effective, not because it was more powerful, but because it was unpredictable. Their Captain Chen said something interesting during the diplomatic exchange. Miravex noted, bringing up the transcript. When asked why humans chose to develop deception-based defense systems instead of traditional armadas, she said, because the strongest shield isn't the one that stops the attack. It's the one that makes your opponent question whether attacking is worth the uncertainty. ZX-427 felt his crystalline structure resonate with understanding. They're not just defending themselves. They're rewriting the rules of interstellar conflict. The Ghost Protocol isn't a weapon system. It's a message to the galaxy. A message saying what? Asked Vertex. That humanity won't play by our rules, Kron9 answered, his exoskeleton clicking in what might have been admiration. They won't build bigger fleets or stronger weapons. They'll make us question whether we understand warfare at all. The display showed the Twilight Wanderer, a single ship that had changed the coalition's understanding of power. It wasn't about size, numbers, or even technological superiority. It was about adaptation, innovation, and the ability to turn apparent weakness into unprecedented strength. Prepare the final analysis, ZX-427 commanded. The coalition needs to understand that we're not just dealing with a new species. We're dealing with a fundamental challenge to everything we thought we knew about interstellar relations. As the analysts began their work, the words of Captain Chen echoed through the chamber. Humanity doesn't need an armada. We just need you to understand that you never quite know what you're really facing. And that, perhaps, was the most terrifying weapon of all. The quantum gambit. Captain Sarah Chen sat across from first speaker Verana in the neutral conference chamber aboard the coalition diplomatic vessel Crystal Accord. The quantum field generators of the Twilight Wanderer hummed in perfect harmony with the crystalline resonance of the alien ship, creating an almost musical undertone to their historic meeting. Your ghost protocol. Verana's crystalline form shimmered with curiosity. Our scientists still cannot fully comprehend how a single ship can exist in so many quantum states simultaneously. Dr. Wong, seated beside Chen, smiled. That's because you are still thinking in terms of traditional space-time mechanics. We don't make the ship exist in multiple states. We make multiple states exist within a single ship. The Coalition's chief scientist, a towering being of pure energy contained within an advanced environmental suit, leaned forward. But the power requirements alone should make such a system impossible. Our calculations suggest you would need the energy output of a small star. Unless, Wong countered, you're not actually manipulating the quantum states themselves, but rather the probability of their observation. We don't need to make every state real. We just need to make them possible enough to be detected. The revelation sent ripples of excitement through the coalition delegation. Their entire understanding of quantum mechanics had been based on manipulating existing states. The humans had instead chosen to manipulate the very nature of probability itself. A demonstration might help, Chen suggested, nodding to Wong. The physicist activated a small device on the conference table, and suddenly the room seemed to split into multiple overlapping versions of itself, each slightly different, each equally real and unreal. This is a minimal application of the Ghost Protocol, Wong explained as the coalition representatives stared in amazement. We're not creating multiple rooms. We're making the quantum uncertainty of this single room visible to the naked eye. First speaker Verana's crystalline structure pulsed with understanding. This is why our weapons couldn't target your ship effectively. It wasn't just about missing. Our systems couldn't decide which version of your vessel was real. All of them were real, Chen corrected. And none of them were. That's the beauty of quantum uncertainty. The moment you try to determine which state is real, you collapse the very phenomenon you're trying to observe. The coalition's military advisor, Admiral Kexel, clicked his battle-scarred mandibles thoughtfully. You've weaponized Schrödinger's cat. Your ship is simultaneously everywhere and nowhere until the moment of engagement. More than that, Wong added, expanding the demonstration to show complex mathematical models. We've learned to manipulate the probability fields themselves. We can make certain quantum states more likely to be observed than others, effectively steering the collapse of the wave function. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't just developed a new technology. They'd fundamentally altered the rules of space combat. Traditional fleet tactics, based on predictable physics and known capabilities, became meaningless against an opponent who could manipulate the very fabric of probability. But why? Verena asked, her crystalline resonance carrying genuine curiosity. With this technology, you could have built an unstoppable fleet. Instead, you chose to send a single ship. Chen's expression softened. Because we learned long ago that the most powerful message isn't sent through force, but through demonstration. We didn't want to defeat your fleet. We wanted to show you why such conflicts are ultimately futile. Your species evolved on a death world, Admiral Kexhal observed. Yet instead of developing overwhelming firepower, you chose to master uncertainty itself. Earth taught us that survival isn't about being the strongest, Chen explained. It's about being the most adaptable. The Ghost Protocol isn't just a defensive system. It's a reflection of humanity's fundamental approach to existence. We survive by making our potential threats question whether they understand the situation at all. Dr. Wong deactivated the demonstration, and the room settled back into a single quantum state. The technology itself isn't even the most important part. It's the philosophy behind it. Every species faces the same choice when they reach the stars. Do they try to dominate the unknown or learn to dance with it? First speaker Verana's form pulsed with what the humans had learned to recognize as deep contemplation. Your single ship has done more than defeat our fleet. It has challenged our entire understanding of power." "That was the point." Chen smiled. "The Ghost Protocol isn't about making our ships impossible to fight. It's about making conflict itself appear increasingly improbable. When every engagement becomes an exercise in quantum uncertainty, the only logical choice is to seek understanding instead of dominance." The coalition delegates exchanged meaningful glances, or what passed for them among their varied species. They had come expecting to either subjugate or battle the new spacefaring race. Instead, they found themselves being taught a lesson about the very nature of power and conflict. "We would like to propose a new form of alliance," Varana announced, her crystalline structure glowing with formal intensity. "Not based on military strength or technological exchange, but on the sharing of perspectives. Humanity's approach to quantum mechanics and to existence itself offers insights we had never considered." Chen nodded, exactly the response they had hoped for. "After all," she said, "the greatest victory isn't in winning the battle, it's in making the battle unnecessary in the first place." As the delegates began discussing the details of their new alliance, the Twilight Wanderer hung in space nearby, its quantum field generators humming softly. A single ship that had changed the galaxy not through force of arms, but through the simple demonstration that there were always more ways to approach a problem than anyone had previously imagined. Symphony of Stars. 5 years after the historic first contact between humanity and the Myriad Coalition, the galactic landscape had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. The grand observation deck of the newly constructed Harmony Station offered a spectacular view of Earth and the assembled diplomatic fleet, a striking visual representation of how much had changed. Captain Sarah Chen, now Admiral Chen, stood beside First Speaker Varana, watching as vessels from 100 different species maneuvered in perfect quantum synchronization. Each ship's Ghost Protocol system had been modified and adapted to its own unique design, creating a mesmerizing dance of probability and possibility. "Sometimes I still can't believe how far we've come." Varana's crystalline form sparkled in the starlight. 5 years ago, we thought we were coming to subjugate a primitive species. Instead, you taught us to see the universe in an entirely new way." Chen smiled, watching as a newly commissioned coalition vessel practiced its quantum state transitions. The Ghost Protocol was never meant to be kept as a human secret. It was always intended as a proof of concept, a demonstration that there are always alternatives to traditional power structures. Below them, in the station's quantum physics laboratory, Dr. Wang was leading a diverse team of scientists from across the galaxy. They had moved far beyond the original military applications of quantum field manipulation, discovering new possibilities in everything from medicine to deep space exploration. The latest reports from the Frontier Exploration Initiative are remarkable, Varana noted, bringing up a holographic display. "Using modified Ghost Protocol systems, our ships can now safely navigate phenomena we once thought impassable. Black hole event horizons, quantum filaments, even the edges of reality itself. Because we stopped trying to force our way through obstacles," Chen replied, "and learned to dance with uncertainty instead." The display shifted to show footage from various worlds across the coalition. Species that had once built their societies around military might were now flourishing in new ways, their understanding of quantum mechanics revolutionizing everything from art to architecture. Buildings that existed in multiple probability states, entertainment that played with the very fabric of reality, medical treatments that approached healing from quantum perspectives. The human phrase, paradigm shift, doesn't quite capture it, Admiral Cuxhall said as he joined them, his battle scars now complemented by the markings of a peace ambassador. "You didn't just change how we fight, you changed how we think." The station's quantum field harmonized with a passing ship, creating a brief moment where multiple versions of reality overlapped. It was no longer disorienting to the coalition species. They had learned to embrace the uncertainty, to see beauty in the infinite possibilities. "Look at that," Dr. Wang called out, directing their attention to a new vessel approaching Earth. It was massive, easily dwarfing both human and coalition ships, its hull gleaming with an otherworldly iridescence. The precursors have finally decided to make contact. Chen felt her breath catch. The precursors, a mysterious elder race that had been observing galactic civilization for millennia without interfering. Their sudden interest in direct communication was perhaps the most significant validation of humanity's impact on the galaxy. They say they've been waiting, Varana explained, her crystalline resonance carrying notes of awe. Waiting for a species to discover that true power lies not in domination, but in understanding. The Ghost Protocol wasn't just a technological breakthrough, it was a spiritual one. The precursor vessel shifted through quantum states as it approached, each version more beautiful than the last. Its mastery of the technology humanity had pioneered was breathtaking, demonstrating possibilities even Dr. Wong hadn't imagined. We thought we were developing a defense system, Chen mused, watching the ship's approach. Instead, we ended up creating a new language, a way for different species to communicate through the very fabric of reality itself. The observation deck filled with representatives from dozens of species as the precursor ship initiated first contact protocols. Each being present had their own story of how the Ghost Protocol had transformed their society, their understanding of the universe, their very way of existence. You know what the most remarkable thing is? Admiral Kexhall clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Not a single shot has been fired in coalition space since we adopted these principles. When you understand that reality itself is a dance of possibilities, the idea of forcing your will through violence becomes primitive. Chen nodded, remembering that first confrontation 5 years ago. One ship against an armada, not to fight, but to demonstrate a better way. We never needed to be the strongest, she said. We just needed to show that strength itself was a limited way of thinking. As the precursor vessel prepared to dock, its quantum field harmonizing with the stations in ways that made reality itself sing, Chen reflected on humanity's journey to the stars. They had carried with them not the scars of their harsh evolution, but the wisdom it had taught them. That survival depended not on overwhelming force, but on the ability to adapt, to question, to see possibilities where others saw only obstacles. The galaxy had expected humanity to be conquered. Instead, humanity had taught the galaxy to dance with uncertainty itself, and in doing so, they had transformed not just space travel or warfare, but the very nature of civilization. The symphony of stars played on, each quantum probability a note in an endless melody of possibility, as humanity and their new allies prepared to meet the next chapter in their shared journey through the infinite dance of existence.